Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of Paranormal Living with me, your host, Jared Warne. So we have a very, very interesting episode for you today, which is all about Ouija boards. As many of you know, we have covered this in the past when it was me and Jay, but we've had a few messages and people really interested in this subject again, and obviously now being joined by Carl and Bob as a new co-host with me on Paranormal Living. I thought it'd be really interesting to get their thoughts on the Ouija boards and their experiences, which they are going to share with you very, very soon. But just before we do get into that, make sure, guys, you like us on Facebook, because the likes have gone up dramatically after this past 2 weeks, which is absolutely awesome. So thank you very much. Where you can get us on Paranormal Living, of course, Instagram. You follow us on there, you see sort of behind the scenes and a few of the things we do have planned coming up as well, which is Paranormal Living. Very, very easy to find. And of course, if you would like to take part in the podcast or any stories you would like to share with us, you can get us on email at paranormallivingpodcast@gmail.com. All the links to our socials are in the description below, so make sure you check them out. And of course, don't forget we are sponsored by Paranormal Technology, Paratech, who are based in Northern Ireland. They are an absolutely unbelievable company where we do get all our equipment from. And guys, honestly, as many of you have seen on the live videos we've done, the equipment is absolutely fantastic. And all you have to do to Mark is like the page, show him that you've liked Paranormal Living, and he will give you 10% off your first order on equipment. And like I say, and the guys will tell you, it's absolutely fantastic, and we can't rate Mark highly enough. And I'd like to say actually a big congratulations to Mark on opening his first shop in Northern Ireland, which is absolutely amazing. I can't wait for us to be able to get over there and have a look, where you can go in, check the equipment out yourself. You can try it while you're in the shop, which I think is awesome. So big shout out to Mark and congratulations, buddy. So today's episode, it's a very controversial one. A lot of people have mixed reviews and mixed thoughts on Ouija boards. And some people had good experiences, negative experiences, and some people have absolutely nothing happen to them, where they think it's just something nothing. It's some people say it's in your mind, you are pushing that. But as Bob and Carl will tell you in a couple of moments, they've had some pretty interesting experiences and some not so interesting experiences, and some quite negative things happen to them on the boards. But I just want to put the disclaimer out there for anybody. We at Paranormal Living don't take responsibility or recommend you do Ouija boards. If you want to do that, that is fine, but we just want to put that disclaimer out there. You know, from people listening to this episode might want to go out and think, oh, we'll try one, but we don't take responsibility for that. And if you want to do that, like I said, that's entirely up to you. So, as I mentioned, we are joined by Bob and Carl this afternoon.
How are you, boys?
We are all good. I'm excited for this episode. It's really interesting, and like you said, from some of your experiences you've told me, absolutely terrifying.
Definitely.
Bob, I'm going to start with you since you're in the next camera next to me. So you've done a Ouija board about 3 or 4 times.
I did it 3 times. I'll tell you, the first time I did it, it was, I'll tell you don't know what to expect. You know, like I said about the history of it, you know, families thought it was just an entertainment. It even knocked Monopoly off the charts, like, and it took over. But like I say, yeah, if you do experience it, be very careful how you do it, or whatever. Say, look at the warnings, because it can really. It can be unwhelming, you know what I mean? It's something that you need to really think about what you're doing. But with my experience, yeah. I mean, the first time I did it, I didn't live in this place, obviously. I lived somewhere else, and we just had a gathering. We had a sort of sit round, and we decided to have a go. We made up this sort of like Ouija board with papers and put, letters, numbers and all that, and then put it all out, put a glass out on the table. We was just doing that. We was getting a few little names and stuff like that. We was getting it to move to different letters and stuff like that, which we thought, well, that's entertainment, it's not too bad. But then it got to the stage where the glass started shaking on the actual table, which was a bit scary, because you don't know what's going on. So we all quickly took our fingers off it, obviously, because of the shock of seeing that glass move. And then I said, well, what we need to do is just put our hands back onto it and end this ceremony, but what we were doing, like, you know what I mean? So we all done it. We put our fingers back onto the glass again, and then within a couple of seconds it shook a little bit, the glass, and then whoosh, it flew off the table and went on the floor and smashed over by the fireplace. That was my first experience.
Do you think from that moment when that happened, what was your instinct straight away? Was it just shock, or was it this is absolutely
I
terrifying?
think
Or
it was shocking the fact that we weren't. I don't think we was alone. I think there was something like some energy trying to manifest itself. Because I can 100% say that that glass did not, with anything, did not be pushed by anybody. Because at the time that we put our fingers straight back on the glass, whoosh, it had gone. But with the shaking, I'm thinking there was some activity going on there, so some presence, something was going on with that situation. You know what I mean? But with the second one, obviously I was in this house, and as Jared knows, and obviously Carl knows, there is a bit of activity going on here. But I think it stems back to when we done a Ouija session. Like I said, we had this table. There was about 6 or 7 of us. It could have been a bit less. We was doing it. We had this table, and it was a glass top. Obviously, it was fixed. There was no way that glass could actually move. We was just doing exactly the same as, like I said, on the first incident. We've done cut some bits of paper out and put letters on it and stuff like that. And then basically we just got the glass and we just all put our fingers on and all that. We was getting some movement. You could feel the energy, because when you do a Ouija board, you can feel the energy come down your arm and it hits that glass. And when it hits that glass, the glass will move. And you could feel that all going on. You know what I mean? Which that's a bit scary as well when you get that situation where you feel that the energy's forcing the glass to move, like something's coming down your arm or taking over you, whatever. But anyway, like I said, we carried on like that, and we was getting letters and we was getting sort of stuff like that. We weren't really getting a lot. But then again, like I say, you got to be careful who you're contacting, because who you think you're contacting could possibly be somebody trying to get in open the gate and get in. You know what I mean? Cut a long story short, it was just basically the glass was there. It wasn't moving. It was fixed. Put our fingers on the glass. And then for some apparent reason, my arm really felt really weird. Like there was something coming down and it was taking energy from the glass to move. But at that second, everybody seemed to be feeling the same thing, because it was quite weird. And then suddenly the actual glass sort of that was on top of the table, like it was fixed, it started moving. It started shaking big time, really big time. You know what I mean? But like I said, all we did is, like you're saying, you react, you take your hands off. I said, we've got to put it back on, we've got to shut this down. And lucky enough, we did shut it down. Like the first incident, we managed to shut it down, but obviously something can get in that time when you've got activity going in your house, like tables moving or shaking of tables or lifting the tables, stuff like that. If you get anything like that, you know for a fact something might have got in. And I still feel that something's here that's actually got in. But like a Wally, I've done it again. Obviously, there was more of us that time. We had 2 people sitting on the chair. We had 2 people sitting on the sofa, and there was 4 people around the table. Obviously, they weren't getting involved in it. You know what I mean? The 2 on one side and 2 on the other. They was on chairs and the sofa. But there's 4 of us, and we was around that. Basically, we had really silly comments coming out, and it was quite unbelievable. But the 2 people who were sat on the chair, one of them obviously left because he got scared about the situation. But then the other one said, "Oh, well, I'm just going to nip to the toilet." The next minute, he was gone. He was disappeared. So 2 people left at that time, and they must have felt something, or they must have got some energy, or felt uncomfortable. You know what I mean? It's like with investigations. When you're doing investigations, you can feel not right when you know there's something there. You know what I mean? But this is how it felt in this house. It was crazy. We got a few things. We got some names. We got a crash on a motorway, stuff like that. Names. It was really weird. You know what I mean? And it was absolutely mental. But yeah, they're my experiences anyway, Giles. Yeah.
yeah, no, that's cool. For me personally, people know that who listen to the podcast. I've never done one. It's definitely not my cup of tea. I'm against it, to be honest. Obviously, people are entitled to their own opinions. If they want to do one, they want to do one. That's absolutely fine. This is just my belief and what I think about it all. But obviously, growing up with my granddad being a medium, he was always dead against it, because again, it's going back to the thing of you don't know who you're bringing through. They are very dangerous and can be very dangerous if they're
Definitely.
not in the right hands and not used properly. But I always remember telling you this story. So my granddad got a phone call from this lady, and her daughter had been messing around with a Ouija board with her friends. Things didn't go to plan. Things went south very quickly, and obviously she picked up on some negative energy. And while this is happening, when she's come home after playing with this thing, she's been really down. There's just a weird energy about her, and this is what her mum was saying. And she called my granddad to go in. So my granddad went round to see her, and he said he put his hand on the girl's shoulder, and he said it was like an electric shock down his arm. He said there was just something really negative attached to her. Then obviously managed to do some like healing and a cleanse on her. But you know, I think that was one of the things why my granddad always drilled it into us for not to be playing with these things. And like you're saying, a lot of people don't really know how to open and close them properly. You know, they just think, oh, it's a game, you know, let's just do this. And then, yeah, like you say, you could be leaving anything open. But we're going to get on to Carl's story now, because I know, Carl, you've done one quite a few times. Obviously, I know your first experience is absolutely horrifying. If you want to share that with us.
Yeah, certainly. My first experience of a Ouija board it'll stick with me forever, really. I was used to live in the northeast of England, and yeah, a group asked me if I'd like to go to a ghost hunt with them in an old infant school, I believe it was. It was a school, and went in there and said, "Have you tried a Ouija board before?" I said, "No." I said, "Would you like to try one?" I said, "Yeah, I'll give it a go." So we did the things, sat down and put my fingers on the glass, everything like that. And I got the words Lucifer that was spelt out on the board. And at that time, I felt so hot, but there was a breeze in there. People were saying they were feeling cold. I was so hot and humid and clammy. I was sweating, and they said we need to get him off the board, because they said my eyes turned really dark. So they took me off the board. They literally pulled me off the board without closing it or anything. They just literally pulled me off the board, took me to the hall where the rest of the group were. And there was a lady giving her side of what she was picking up, and I just wanted to shut her up. Basically, I was looking at her and thinking, if I put my hands around her neck, I could shut her up, but I couldn't move because some members of the group had the hands on my shoulder, keep me literally to the chair. And there was a lady in there that said, just walk past him, ask someone to walk past him, keep it out of his vision. And every time she walked in front of my vision, I kept turning away from her. If I could see her, I was turning away left and right. And I just wanted to get up off that chair and literally do something bad to somebody, the anger, the rage that was building. So I'm a big guy myself, so literally they had to get hold of me, 4 people, and literally pull me through the hall outside. And they had to give me a prayer, a cleansing, everything. They brought the glass out. They tried to smash the glass. It wouldn't smash. Just threw it against the wall. It bounced off the wall. And there's that. Basically, after the cleansing and the prayers, I went back into the hall, and the lady who was walking in front of me, who I wouldn't stare at, she said, "The reason why you wouldn't stare at me is because I carry this around me." And she pulled a big cross from underneath the clothes. She said, "I carry this around with me all the time." And the reason for that was for protection on her side. Now, I wouldn't look at her because she reckons it was the cross and me picking up something. So I think something attached to me, something really dark. And I just felt, I thought it was just an overwhelming sense of rage and anger. And they said I was perfectly fine. So when I went home, my partner even said, "You don't look right. You do not look right." And next day I went down to see a priest, and he said, "No, you did have an attachment," and he did a prayer and everything on me then. And he said, "Do not do them." And I can safely say Ouija boards can be so dangerous. I would not advise them if you don't know what you're doing. It can be a dangerous thing. So that was one of my experiences.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this is no disrespect to some of the paranormal groups out there, because another story of experience we sort of had when me and Jay went to Morecambe Winter Gardens on the paranormal investigation. And we was in the gallery and we could hear these noises through this door, and I'm like, could be something enough in it, could be a rational explanation. But we're like, and then the cat balls were going off, so I'm like, right, okay. And then it turns out the Ouija board was through this room, but all the noises were coming from where the Ouija board was. Very weird. And obviously you don't know who's used it in the past. You don't know if it's ever been shut down properly. And the guy said, we'll open it, shut it down properly. He didn't. He'd just give everyone free reins to do whatever they wanted. Obviously, I stood and watched, but I did not get involved with that because, again, Definitely not my thing. And it's just, no one really knew what they were doing in that sense. So you could just be bringing anything through, which
Definitely.
sort of seemed to happen. And it wasn't until Jay's, from what we gathered, would have been Jay's dad coming through, where that was just constantly taking over, so we couldn't, so nothing else was coming through. But again, just watching it, and I'm just like, no, but you still don't know, like you say, just because sometimes you perceive it as family coming through, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is. You're leaving yourself open more then to obviously
Yeah.
something happening.
I mean, like sometimes they say, though, don't they? You don't have Ouija boards in your house, even if you're not using them. Having them in your house can cause activity, and I believe that. You know what I mean? I made a homemade one, and I did. I had it in here for months, but believe me, I was getting all sorts of stuff going on, movements, things moving, bloody losing stuff, and then it turning back up. I was getting all that sort of thing. So, I think that's part of it as well. You just don't have them in your house point blank, because they're not. If you've got them in your house, you can get activity from it. Actually, mental it is.
Well, Carl, I have another question for you. Just going back to obviously your experience with the Ouija board.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've done one since, haven't you? Well, you both have, because this question sort of goes to both of you as well. But just before I asked you that question. How did you feel after that experience? After you've had the cleanse and just before, you went on another investigation. What was your feelings afterwards of having that
After the
experience?
cleansing, after the cleansing, I think for me it was like it's like if you're using a board like that, you're opening something, letting something into yourself that you don't even understand where it's coming from. But for me, when I've done a Ouija board since then, but I'll only do it if I know it's done properly, if it's open properly, and I can guarantee it's open and closing properly. But even then, that experience what I had, it affected me for quite a long time, and it still does to this day, because I still have dreams about that sort of thing, about what would have happened if I didn't get cleansed, or if I didn't get the prayers. Could something really bad have happened to me?
That's it. You don't know, do you?
This question I'm going to put to both of you. Bob, I'll start with you. What was it? What made you want to do it again?
I think it was the fact that the unknown. Sometimes when you've got somebody who's passed, like whatever, you want to try and see if you can communicate with these people. I think it was just curiosity. But when you do it, sometimes you don't get the result you want. When you do something like that, it's crazy. Crazy thing.
What about you, Carl? Same question to you.
I think it's that sensation as if I've experienced the dark side of it, could experience something different. But when me trying it and trying it again, you can almost tell instantly if there's something dark coming through. Because when I was on the second time, when I was on the board itself, it literally spelled out a word that only my family knew. And I thought, oh, well, it must be something good. But at the end of the day, you don't really know. It could be something that's lying to you, pretending to be somebody. But yeah, it's a strange feeling.
It's right though, it does. It sends out messages, but might not be true. Sends out, it spell a name out. You think, oh, that's that person, but it's not. It's a demonic thing that's trying to enter our domain. And I think that's what it is.
I totally agree. I love these experiences, and obviously when we did the live on Tuesday night, and obviously we did a similar thing talking about Ouija boards and things, and other people who joined in on the conversation. It's really, really interesting to get people's thoughts and obviously experiences, because some people have done them, absolutely nothing's happening, and they say it's a load of rubbish. These things don't exist. You move it yourself, and then other people have had situations like both of yourselves where people have literally left the room because they've been so terrified, and Carl being more or less possessed by something negative and attaching. You know what I mean? It's what a contrast to experiences people have. A lot of the comments people make as well is about the glass shooting off the table. And if anyone's pushing that, that's physically impossible to do. And a lot of people have this experience, don't they? The glass maybe shattering by itself, or it's flying off the table. Something happens like that. Do you, because obviously you've both done one, do you think that is when the negative's coming through, because that you're making you take your hands off that board, that glass is shattered, you can't shut it down properly? What do you think of that? Carl, I'll start with you on that one, pal.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think if you're using the glass and something negative wants that board to remain open, it's going to try to break the glass that you're using. So no one can close it down because you're physically taking away the object that's causing basically the messages to come out. So if that glass shatters, you can't close it down with that glass anymore.
Yeah. So what about you, Bob? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you bring this energy into your domain once you're doing a board anyway. And I think what you're doing is when you do that, it obviously comes down part of your body, whatever, I don't know, gets into the glass, and that's in the glass. And all it needs to do is just release itself. And the only way it can do that is smash the glass and become in the atmosphere. I mean, I've had it where I've had glass just shatter for no reason. You know, I'm not going to say when I was in like abroad one time, I had glass on the side, the next minute it shattered everywhere. Why? I do not know. But it does happen. Maybe it's something that's trapped in that glass at that time and wants to release itself. And it finds that's the gate to get into the atmosphere, get into our domain. Goes through the glass, comes out, because it's like a mirror, isn't it? At the end of the day, you know what I mean? You see what I'm saying?
It's just so interesting, all these different experiences, and like you say, things you see online and read about. Because there's another thing I want to touch upon. Was this gentleman, I'm not going to mention his name, of course, but he's on TikTok. He goes live quite regularly, doing investigations, because TikTok's become a big thing for tarot readers, mediumship, and obviously paranormal investigations. It's very big on that, for that platform. And one of these guys, watching him, I was watching quite a few of his lives, and there's always something weird about it. I don't know, I get a weird feeling every time I watch his lives. I don't know what it is. I just get an odd feeling, which brings me on to another question, which I'm going to ask you about in a moment. And he does Ouija boards a lot. That's his thing. And I don't really like watching it when it comes to that. And a lot of the comments are, I don't claim any negative energy off this video. And, he's in graveyards on top of people's graves doing Ouija boards, which I think is highly disrespectful. If I turn that on, and that was one of my loved ones, and he's on their grave doing Ouija boards, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Even if he's pretending to do it or really doing it, whatever the case. But watching a lot of his videos, even since, he always looks like he's got something attached to him. He always looks negative. Like, just around his eyes look dark. If he hadn't slept in days. And there's just something, when you watch the earlier videos, say, when he first joined TikTok to now, he just looks something negative about him. It's really bizarre. Can't explain it. You get that vibe from watching these videos. And he does tend to say a lot. He does get a lot of attachments, but then because he says he's a medium, that he gets rid of them, which I don't think he does, because you can just tell by the face just changing slightly. This brings me on to that next question. Like, do you think watching lives, like Facebook lives, YouTube, TikTok, whatever, when people are doing things like this, or things maybe quite negative, do you think it can affect you yourself? Like, for me, watching it, like I always say, I get quite a weird feeling about it. And I remember telling you guys that on one of the lives I was watching once, this guy was in a tunnel, and it's like I'd literally just dropped either into like a deep meditation, or I was taken somewhere. I'd never experienced this before, and never happened since. But I ended up seeing this little girl, and she was just sat in the corner and she was crying, but it was as if I was where he was. Obviously, you couldn't really see much because it was pitch black. It was a very bizarre situation, but I picked up on quite a few bits, which was quite interesting. So do you guys think that when you do watch these lives and different videos, that it can affect you from your own home? Bob, obviously, I'll start with you on this one.
Well, I think people can pick up energy from the programs anyway. You know what I mean? I've felt it myself. And I've had things move and stuff like that. And I felt really uncomfortable. I felt like, there's like something around me, you know what I mean? Like with a spirit, where they can transfer energy anywhere they want. I mean, with the actual programs, you'd be surprised what can actually happen. How you can feel uncomfortable when you're watching these programs, and how, you know what I mean, you can feel that there's vibes around you, energy. You know what I mean? It's quite crazy, really. Yeah, I totally agree with it. I believe it can happen. I believe they can transport energy no matter wherever you are, energy can be transported, no matter what. And if you're like a medium or something like that, like Jared is becoming, that could be your target. That could be their gate to get to you, and that's what can happen. I mean, I've just experienced the general side of it. I've not experienced going into the old meditation side of it or whatever you've experienced there. But like I say, if I can experience that, what your experience must be totally different. Like I said, some people have got the gift to pick up on these things, you know what I mean? But I felt, I didn't feel uncomfortable. I just felt like there was energy around me. Something was around me, and it was coming from the actual TV, the programs that I watch. I can watch some programs and I think, oh my God, this is crazy. I'm not feeling right here. Something like there's around me, and then I'm hearing things, and you know, something like a little toy or moo or something like that, or a little creak or whatever. Totally agree with it. Yeah, it can happen, and I believe it does happen.
Talking of picking things up mediumship wise, like I always remember my granddad watching, like Most Haunted, for example.
Oh yeah,
and he'd pick stuff up when they were live, because I think you naturally tune in to that. Obviously, Carl's very open to the spirit world himself, and my granddad used to pick up on quite a bit of stuff just by watching the lives, and you know, which is like unbelievable. And I do think it probably can affect you that way, especially when you're quite tuned into the spirit world. What about you, Carl? Do you think that watching these lives and these TV programs can affect you?
Oh, most definitely, yeah. I've watched a couple of live programs where they've done Ouija boards, for instance, and they've done it live, and things have happened near me. I've had like lights flickering, and I think it gives the spirit world, if you don't know what you're doing with things, and say for instance you pick up something dark energy on a spirit board, for instance, and it's live, what better way for that to be in the world than transfer itself to everybody that's watching around the world? But it's like a mirror both ways, you know.
That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it can. So I believe so.
Yeah.
I think it's waves of energy that actually transport itself.
Yeah, well, I just want to mention something along that lines. You know, like one of the programs I used to watch, and they had this demonologist guy on, and he was reading out of like a, you know, calling out spirit at the witching hour, like saying some not so good things, I guess you could say. I remember just turning it off, this live, because I'm like, I can't watch this. It's making me feel uneasy. Like, I mute the telly or something. There's just something makes me think I shouldn't be watching this. Even on some of these lives these days, when I watch, I'm like, I'm going to have to switch it off. There's just something I don't know if it's spirit letting you know, like, you need to switch this off. You know,
it could be anything.
Yeah, it does. Like you say, it makes such a lot of sense. So, guys, we are coming to the end of this week's episode. I do hope you've enjoyed it and this sort of in-depth chat. So, guys, before we do finish, I'd like to say thank you very much for listening to this week's episode. Of course, thank you to Bob and Carl for being a part of the show and sharing their experiences with us. You know, we really do appreciate it. We will be live next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. for Paranormal Tuesday on Facebook and YouTube. So make sure you get us on there for next week's episode, where we'll be talking about divot boxes, which is going to be quite an interesting episode to look into the history and if anyone's ever had one or experienced one. You know, we'd love to hear that. And finally, guys, you know, just have a great week. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, be safe and be careful.
Be safe. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Love and light. Adios.